In this video on QD3000, we're going to take an overview of the settings page. So from our main menu screen, we transition to settings. The first thing to note is that there are multiple settings pages. So this is system settings 1, and in a minute we'll use the arrow here at the bottom right in order to move to page number 2. We'll start here at the top left. So we first of all have some various settings that we can enable or disable. The hide history full alarm is the QuickDraw can hold 100 historical records. And so when we have this alarm enabled, we are not going to see an alarm when the history is full. If we were to disable that, when our QuickDraw reaches the point where it has 100 records, it is going to provide us a warning that says it's going to overwrite the oldest record. Moving on to the grower farm field tree. When this setting is enabled, the grower farm field tree is in a linked hierarchy, meaning that if I have a particular grower selected, I will only see farms associated with that grower and fields associated with that farm. If I were to disable this setting, that linked hierarchy is going to be disabled, meaning that at any point in time I'm entering grower farm field information, I am going to see all growers, all farms, and all fields regardless of their association with one another. I'm going to go ahead and leave that enabled. The next two are inventory alarms. The first one is our shuttle inventory alarm. With that enabled as it is now, when a chemical tote or shuttle drops below the alarm point, it's going to provide us that warning that says you have a low tote. If I were to disable that, we never see that alarm. Similarly, carrier inventory is the same alarm associated with our carrier tank. And currently we see that disabled as that is the most common configuration, is that my carrier is something that I fill up and I discharge and I fill up and I discharge perhaps multiple times per day, and managing it with an inventory alarm actually in many cases just isn't practical. So we have that one currently disabled. Of course, we see our battery voltage. Next, we have our date format and then our time and date. The date format allows me to select between the US standard format of year, month, day, or the international standard of day, month, year. We'll leave it in year, month, day, and then we set our time and date. QuickDraw has an internal battery that provides the power for the clock so that it will remember that date once we set it. Moving to our middle column of settings page 1, we see default pounds per gallon. That is set at 10 pounds per gallon, and that is the volume conversion that is utilized when I'm adding dry material to a batch. So when that is set for 10 pounds per gallon, what that means is that for every 10 pounds of dry material that is going to be added to a batch, it assumes that it's going to replace 1 gallon of water. In the middle, we have our units. That's a drop-down menu where we can select between English and metric. Pump start mode either has momentary or maintained. This is a setting that we utilize when we are connecting QuickDraw to an AC motor starter. And based on the setup of the motor starter circuit, we would either need to select the momentary output or the maintained output. Pump start time is the amount of time in seconds that it is going to keep the pump start signal active. We utilize this setting with the new Honda IGX 390 engine that has the automated choke and start feature. our testing has shown that 2.5 seconds is the correct and adequate start time. However, for your situation, if you needed to adjust that to be longer or shorter, this is where you would do that. Moving to our last column, our manual product valve select. That is a drop-down menu that we have that has 3 options. And when we are putting a manual product, when QuickDraw is at the point in the batch where it is telling us that it is ready for a manual product, this setting is going to indicate which valve is open, whether that 2-inch valve is open, whether the 3-inch valve is open, or whether both valves are closed. And then in our last setting on page 1 is kill pump during pause. So while we're running a batch, we have a pause button that appears right here where the start button is. And this setting simply turns on or off that when we press pause, it will kill the pump at that point in time. So by default, it is off. If we want it to kill the pump, when we push pause, we would enable that setting. Transitioning to page 2, these are, we can enable or disable product valves using the slider switches here. And this is where we would adjust the valve close time. This is the tuning parameter that allows us to make adjustments so that a particular valve is in fact landing on the target every time, that it's specifically hitting that target. For more information about how to adjust those, see the user's manual. Moving on to the middle column of page 2, we see a purge time. This is a new feature for in model 21-year quick draws, that we can add a valve that then is connected to an air source that at batch completion will open and purge the discharge hose going to the sprayer with air. And the purge time is the amount of time that that valve will be open. Our final settings are our display sleep and our inactive shutdown. So if we enable display sleep, that means that much like your cell phone, after 10 minutes, the display is simply going to turn off. If we enable inactive shutdown, currently set for 60 minutes, after 60 minutes of no activity in the controller is going to fully power down. These are 2 features that allow us to ensure that we don't inadvertently drain the battery because our quick draw ends up setting for an extended period of time when we are not using it. That is an overview of the system settings for QuickDraw 3000.